I cannot be more proud to express the very reason why I believe with every fiber of my being that Islam is the one and only true religion, the absolute, undeniable truth. For the longest time, I was someone who needed proof. I am an analytical person, born and raised in America, brought up in a society that teaches you to question everything, to rely strictly on empirical evidence, on science, on history, on things you can see and touch. I wasn't going to just hand my life over to a belief system simply because someone told me it was the right thing to do. I needed to know why. And then I opened the Quran. What I found inside completely shattered my worldview. It wasn't just a book of spiritual guidance. It was a map of the universe, a microscopic lens into biology, and a deeply mathematical masterpiece. Every single verse, every single word connects in this breathtaking, miraculous way to what we only know today through the most advanced modern science. I am going to give you definitive, concrete proof, some of the most mind-blowing miracles of the Quran. And as you listen to this, I need you to keep one vital, inescapable fact in your mind. This book was revealed over 1,400 years ago, in the middle of the desert, to a man who could neither read nor write. Let's start with the very cosmos we live in. For centuries, the greatest scientific minds, the brightest astronomers of human history, believed that the universe was static. They thought the universe had a fixed size, that it had always been the way it is, unchanging and still. It wasn't until the 20th century, specifically in 1929, that the American astronomer Edwin Hubble looked through a massive telescope and made a discovery that shook the scientific community to its core. He discovered that the galaxies are moving away from each other. He discovered that the universe is constantly expanding. This was a monumental scientific breakthrough. Imagine my absolute shock, my complete disbelief, when I learned that over a millennium before Edwin Hubble was even born, the Quran already stated this fact with absolute precision. In chapter 51, verse 47, it says, "And the heaven we constructed with strength, and indeed we are its expander." Read that again. We are its expander. How? How could a man living in the 7th century Arabian desert, without telescopes, without satellites, without physics degrees, look up at the night sky and know that the fabric of space is stretching outwards? He couldn't, unless he was told by the creator of that very universe. But the miracles don't just exist in the massive scale of the galaxies. They are equally profound in the microscopic world. Let's talk about insects. Let's talk about the bees and the spiders. Now, in the Arabic language, words have gender. They are either masculine or feminine. When the Quran speaks about the bee that leaves the hive, that searches for nectar, that builds the honeycomb, it uses the feminine grammar. For centuries, people didn't know the intricate workings of a beehive. In fact, many ancient cultures believed that the ruler of the hive was a king bee, and that male bees did all the work. It wasn't until modern science and entomology advanced that we learned the truth. The male bees, the drones, do absolutely no work in building the hive or making honey. Every single worker bee that you see flying around, gathering nectar, building the incredibly precise hexagonal chambers, and producing honey is female. The Quran addressed the female bee explicitly 1,400 years ago. Not only that, but we now know that a female bee has 2 stomachs, one for her own digestion and a separate honey stomach, where nectar is stored to be converted into honey. The Quran accurately captures the complexity of this creature in ways human observation at the time simply could not. The exact same phenomenon happens with the spider. The Quran has an entire chapter named The Spider. In it, it talks about the spider building its home. And once again, the Arabic word used for the spider taking a home is in the feminine form. Modern biology confirms that it is almost exclusively the female spider that spins the web and builds the home. The males are mostly transient, a tiny, subtle grammatical choice in the Arabic text carrying a biological truth that would take humanity centuries to uncover. It is as if God placed these intricate scientific signposts within the very folds of the Quran's vocabulary, waiting for us to advance enough to finally understand them. And it doesn't stop at astronomy or biology. It reaches into our daily lives, into our bodies, and into our health. Think about the foods mentioned in the Quran and the traditions of the Prophet: honey, dates, olives, pomegranates, and the black seed. For a long time, people just viewed these as staple foods of the Middle Eastern diet. But look at what we call modern medicine today. Look at the holistic health revolution. Science has now proven that honey is a powerful, natural antibacterial and antimicrobial agent. The Quran literally calls honey a healing for mankind. Dates are now prescribed by doctors for pregnant women. As modern studies show, they ease labor and provide the exact burst of natural energy and nutrients needed during childbirth. Olives and olive oil are universally recognized today as the cornerstone of heart health and longevity, and the black seed, which the Prophet said contains a cure for every disease except death, is now being heavily researched in modern laboratories for its incredible immune-boosting, anti-inflammatory, and even anti-cancer properties. What we proudly call modern nutritional science today, the Quran outlined as a divine dietary system 14,000 centuries ago. It is a prescription from the Creator who knows exactly what His creation needs to heal. But if the cosmos, the insects, and the medicine weren't enough to convince my logical mind, there was one more thing, something that completely shattered any remaining wall of doubt I had. The mathematics, the sheer impossible mathematical precision of the Quran. You have to understand, this wasn't a book written in one sitting. It was spoken, revealed piecemeal, verse by verse, over 23 years, in times of war, in times of peace, in joy and in sorrow. Yet, when you put the entire book together and count the words, the symmetry is nothing short of miraculous. The word day, yom, in its singular form is mentioned in the Quran exactly 365 times. Just let that sink in. Exactly the number of days in a solar year. The word month, shahr, is mentioned exactly 12 times, but it gets even deeper. Let's look at the earth we live on. The word for sea or water, bar, is mentioned exactly 32 times in the Quran. The word for land, bar, is mentioned exactly 13 times. If you add them together, 32 plus 13, you get a total of 45. Now let's do the math. If you divide 32, the sea, by the total of 45, you get a percentage, 71.1%. If you divide 13, the land, by the total of 45, you get 28.9%, 71.1% water, 28.9% land. This is the exact scientifically confirmed ratio of water to land on the surface of planet Earth. They didn't have satellites, they didn't have global mapping, Nobody knew the exact geographical composition of the entire planet. And even if they did, how could an unlettered man consciously keep track of every single word he spoke over 23 years to ensure the ratios perfectly matched the geographical reality of the Earth, the days of the solar year, and the months of the lunar calendar? It is statistically, historically, and humanly impossible. This is why my heart found peace. This is why my mind surrendered. Because I realized I wasn't just reading a book written by a human. I was reading a message from the architect of the universe. A message that speaks to the historian, to the scientist, to the mathematician, and most importantly, to the human heart itself. I cannot be more proud to say that I am a Muslim, because my faith isn't blind. It is built on the undeniable, miraculous truth of the Quran.